Hello guys, welcome back to another video. No battles today. What we're going to be doing is some team building. I've really enjoyed a lot of team building in the Timeless Cup. So, we're going to select Timeless Cup. What we're going to be doing today is something that I just decided to do. So, over here in the... we have a Discord full of a few folks from the Pvpoke team. We do testing, talking about mechanics, things like that. And so... Kevin here, he's the spreadsheet guru master extraordinaire on the Go Stadium elite group. So you can subscribe to their Patreon. You can get access to this. It's really great. It's super helpful, super informative. And he's basically like, yo, the update happened. I don't really have a team anymore. Like, should I use this? Is this good? And so I haven't actually asked him for his consent to do this video yet, but I will ask him before I post it. So yeah, anyways. So I just decided what better way to help someone build a team than to record it, and maybe that'll help other people build a team. So there's a lot of options with Timeless Cup. And the thing you should do is don't start with your starter. That's the trick. That is the trick. So instead, what we're going to do is take Relicanth, because Kevin liked Relicanth. And I think Relicanth is good. I just think it's very hard to build a team around. So we're going to take Relicanth. We're going to, I like the Meganium suggestion that Kevin said. Relicanth is particularly weak to grass and dragons. So you kind of have to support it in that way. Usually a good way to defend against grass is to go full Venusaur. Just like you beat all the other grass matchups. But I think Kevin can shore that up with some other picks. So I think Meganium's not too much of a liability. You're gonna have like a coin flip against some Razor Leafers, and you're gonna struggle against Venusaur, but otherwise, I think you're okay. Now we're gonna toss in the Dragonair because out of the you should run a dragon in this cup. That's just how this cup works. Out of all the dragons, Dragonair is the one that can deal with grass the best. Kingdra is very strong, especially after they added Octazooka. So if you can run a Kingdra, you probably should, but don't force it, because you will die to Razor Leaf. And Relicanth will die to Razor Leaf. Meganium is iffy. If you don't hit the Earthquake, you die as well. So there we go. And then you know what we're going to do? We're just going to click the Rate Team button. Yeah, that's right. We're going to rate 6. This is supposed to rate 6 Pokemon. We're just going to do 3. And so here you'll see a couple of things. You'll see this is the top 20 meta. So for anyone that hasn't used this team builder before, this is the top 20 meta here. This basically talks about, like, if you literally just go to Timeless Rankings and you look at the top 20, these are the ones. Now, granted, it's not really the top 20. Snowy Cast form, is that really better than Celio? Where's Celio, right? So you have to take it with a grain of salt, because some of the ones that are further down the list aren't good against the general meta. Or, sorry, they aren't good against the general all picks in the Timeless Cup, but they're very good against the meta picks, like Celio. So whatever, we have this. This is an okay screen, but it's a lot of data here. And you can see basically from left to right, Venusaur beats Relicanth. Whoops. Well, you can actually click that and it'll send you the matchup if you want, so that's cool. But yeah, we have Venusaur. It beats Relicanth. It struggles versus Meganium, and then it beats Meganium, sorry, and then it struggles versus Dragonair. Anyways, we're going to scroll past that. We don't care about that. What we care about is this down here. Potential threats. So this pulls stuff not from the top 20. It just pulls it from things that seem threatening, right? And so it just kind of grabs some data. I've given a couple of suggestions to Matt, like if we could have like a plus button here to just add extra Pokemon that we want to. Like, hey, I like these 10. These 10 were derived from an algorithm that's useful. But I kind of want to look at like number 11 and 12. I'm also wondering about how does that look? So it would be cool to customize the output there. So yeah, so we're checking this out. Looks like we're kind of weak to Pinsir. The thing is though, if you go in and look at Pinsir, he likes to bait a lot. So if he misses the bait, then what happens? You know, like if you go to options and you go, don't bait, is there still Yeah, it looks like he still wins. So sometimes Pinsir wins without baiting. Sometimes Pinsir has to bait in order to win against certain picks. I imagine the Dragonair is probably pretty tough if you get the close combat blocked. So it's a little unreliable, but we can roughly assume that Pinsir is strong versus us, Venusaur is strong versus us, Meganium is strong versus us. You're seeing a theme. Grass type, grass type, grass type. Now, a lot of times, Pvpoke might just put like a bunch of Razor Leafers. Be like, yeah, all the Razor Leafers are good against you. Like, they're all just gonna kick your ass. And that's frustrating sometimes because there's like 20 Razor Leafers and all of them will beat you. So it doesn't give you a diverse snapshot of the things you're weak against because there's so many viable things that fit the same job. Like, people aren't gonna run 3 Razor Leafers on their team. They're gonna run 1. So, like, you have to imagine all of those as a placeholder of, like, all the Razor Leafers aren't very different. Let me put it that way. So, anyways, we don't have that problem. We actually have quite a diverse spectrum of grass. We have a Shelgon, Haunter, Frostlass, so some ghost types here. And then Snowy Castform, which isn't very common. So, out of all these, the things that are probably going to be meta and common, it's going to be Meganium, Venusaur, and that's kind of it. Yeah, maybe Frostlass. I think Frostlass is on the rise because of the double dragon strategies, but whatever. So we're going to scroll down here, and wow, surprise, we have a bunch of fire types. We have Charizard, we have Arcanine, who's arguably not really a fire type. If you hit this plus button, it'll tell you what move it's trying to use. So it's where it's getting this data from is it's getting the data from Fire Fang, Wild Charge, Crunch, right? It's not Snarl, Wild Charge, Crunch. Like, I don't know, it could be. So there you go, right? That's the Arcanine thing. Whoops, we gotta scroll back down. So you can go, oh, that's what it's talking about with Arcanine. Fire Fang Arcanine. Looks like it beats all those. But I'm just gonna be honest, Arcanine's pretty weak. So it's just really squishy. So we're gonna look elsewhere. But this is the nice thing, right? This just gets you the raw data. This is just like, here is some data, honestly. You can just take it or leave it. Well, we're going to take some of it. We're going to leave some of it. So, Venomoth actually jumps out to me as a possibility. However, Relicanth tends to be weak against dragons and grass. So let's see if we can kill both with one pick. Let's see if we can do it. The Charizard comes to mind with the Dragon Claw, but we already spent our slot on Meganium, right? We already spent our starter on Meganium. So we could switch if we wanted to. We could. So this would probably be the question where I would ask Kevin, like, hey, do you want to switch out to Charizard by any chance? Don't have to, but you could. Sunny Castform, I think, is pretty good too. It still struggles against dragons, but that's what our other picks are for. I just think it's too hard to utilize and leverage Relicanth when people can run double dragon versus you, really blow you out, and then if you have a Castform to defend against grass, and your Castform goes against the dragons, then you're also getting blown out. So overall, it's not looking great for most of these picks. And then a lot of these are just off-meta weirdos and stuff. So I would argue that we would want a way to leverage Relicanth a little bit better. So what if we just pop Charizard in here? Let's just try it, okay? So I don't know. I haven't done this particular exercise for this team yet, but we're trying to build a Relicanth team. So here we go. We have potential threats. There they are. It's a bunch of water stuff. Okay, cool. So we probably need a grass user, and there are two options. There's going to be Razor Leafers. It's just going to show pretty much all of them. And then there's actually one it's not showing here, unfortunately, which is going to be Tangrowth. So Tangrowth is a spammier version that has coverage versus fire types. You don't really need that with Relicanth or Dragonair. You tend to handle fire types pretty well. So we're not going to do that, but that is the Vine Whipper. Like, if you don't if you don't want to go Razor Leaf, then you can go Vine Whipper that isn't Meganium and Venusaur, right? We can't choose those because we already chose Charizard. So in this case, the toss-up is, do I go Tangrowth or do I go Razor Leafer? And we're going to go Razor Leafer, good old Victreebel, right? It still beats some of the neutral grass types, like the Tangrowth and Meganium to some extent it can beat. So we just want its poison typing, and we want the quick Leaf Blade for the Kingdra. So we add the Razor Leafer and we rake the team again. Now, we're getting 4 picks in. We actually want to start looking at this here, this threat score. So this number I wouldn't say is gospel. I'd say it's a guideline. So you can use the number, the lower the number the better. Most good teams can get under 600 or right around 600, I would say, is an okay team. You don't need to freak out about your team. You don't need to have second thoughts about your team. You should just be like, you know what? I've got like a 600-ish team. If you have 650, 700, you probably need to reconsider putting different things into your team. You probably have a few glaring holes. And yeah, so we're going to go check it out now. We have, for purposes of this video, I'm not going to go sideways, but it's easier to scroll between these if you use landscape mode on your phone. But yeah, so check it out. We are kind of, like, if you look at these picks now, look at these on the left. You've got some grasses, some dragons, you've got some mud boys, you've got pincers, you've got Drapions, Quagsires. If you notice, right, this is really helpful. These are not the same job types at all. There's a variety of different weird things over there that do different things. They have different roles on the teams. And that's really what this team builder is for. When you get to a point like this, where you can look at this and go, you know what? The things on the left are very diverse. At that point, you don't have any more holes. The fact that we're down near almost 600 already means we don't have holes. And yeah, we only have 4 types. We just have 4 things. And we're already pretty good against those 4 things. So that's awesome, right? I think that's really good. Now, let's zoom in back to what we were doing, right? So let's take a look at, where is it? Victreebel. So Victreebel wins 1. It destroys Relicanth. It ties our Victreebel. And then we still have pretty good coverage versus the Razor Leafers. What we're doing here, just by the way, because you're not necessarily looking where my eyes are looking, I'm just going to tell you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this. I'm looking for big blue streaks. Okay? So we're just going to look for blue streaks horizontally. We're going to look for 3 or possibly 4. Dragonair looks great at a glance. We have Haunter, looks pretty good, but he's kind of bait dependent, so I wouldn't be too worried about him. He's not the most meta or anything. And then everything else is like two boxes or less of things that beat us. So yeah, we're looking good against the top 20. We sure are. The one that isn't in here is Celio, so we also just have to go and kind of look at our team and be like, does Celio beat Relicanth? Heck no. We resist those body slams. That's why we're running Relicanth, because we just wall those ice water types. Okay, great. Does Celio beat Dragonair? Yeah, he pretty much does. Charizard? Yeah, for the most part he does. And then Victreebel? Nah, he gets wrecked. So we have like a 2-2. So we're okay versus Celio for now, but we got to keep it in mind. So we're just going to scroll down, and we're going to try and find an anti-Dragonair. That seems to be good. Anti-Dragonair, anti-Kingdra. See, these two right here? Boom, boom. There's 3 each on there. Dragonair actually ties ours and then beats our other 3. So we're very worried about Dragonair. So we want something that's really good against Dragonair. What could that be? Well, we actually have a ton of options. A pick that I'm liking a little bit more is Frostlass. Because it is fast enough to beat some of the Razor Leafers. It can actually just kill them before they kill you. Things like, there's some slower ice types that don't quite get there. They just die too quickly, and so they don't pressure enough shields. But I think Frostlass is one of them. I think, let's think about Pinsir here. Pinsir is good against ice waters, and it's good against the ice water types, which we're already good against, right, with our Relicanth. And then decent against some grass types, but not all, like Razor Leafers and stuff. So Pinsir's out. Celio is interesting. It's also good against the ice water types. It's the best one. Celio is the ice water type that kills all the other ice water types. So interesting, but again, we have Relicanth for that, so we don't entirely need to elicit a lot of help in that area. So where I'm leaning is probably something like Glalie or Frostlass. Glalie is a little tankier. Frostlass, Glalie is a little more fast move damage and a little tankier. Frostlass is a little more charge movey. So let's go check out our team and see, what do we do? Do we do charge moves? Do we have lots of bulky stuff? Can we afford a squishy? Do we have lots of squishies? Do we have to take the bulky? Do we have generally more fast move damage or more charge move damage, right? Is it really important that our charge moves hit? Do our charge moves augment extra things for us? And, in general, I'd say no. Dragonair, it's just doing dragon and water damage. The Aqua Tails are coming regardless. They're going to get through. Relicanth. Relicanth is actually pretty important with his charge moves. Those ancient powers are very crucial to its kit. Like, it's just a water Pokemon if it doesn't have that. So I would say decent importance here for shield pressure. Victreebel, almost entirely zero dependence on charge moves, right? We do the Razor Leaf and we do it well. And then Charizard, also pretty important for Charizard to hit charge moves, because Blast Burn hurts, especially if you can throw it on certain types and they can't do anything about it. And then Dragon Claw. If you get enough Dragon Claws, you can push a lot of dragons out. And what do we remember about our weakness to dragons? It's huge. Look at that. Boom, boom. So I think we want to augment our team to have a bit more shield pressure to enable our Charizard a little bit more. And then we want a little bit of fast move damage, because we're not super reliant on charge moves. We like getting our charge moves off. It is important, but it's not like if we were running a Haunter, right? And like a Haunter and a Whiscash or something like that. Those are the guys where charge moves are very, very critical. Like another one is like Venusaur or Meganium. All of them have really good charge moves, and you want to enable that. So you want to make picks that turn on charge moves even more. So we're just gonna scroll down, and we're gonna hone in on an anti-dragon pick. And now, I think what jumps out to me the most is Glalie. I was looking at Glalie and Frostlass before, and I think Glalie has enough bulk. That's the other one thing we didn't look at. That is bulkiness. Victreebel is squishy. Charizard is squishy. Relicanth is decently bulky, actually. And then Dragonair is a little on the squishy side. Its stat product is not very high, but its resistances really help it out. So I would say Dragonair and Relicanth are our two bulkiest. Charizard's only bulky versus grass. Otherwise, he's struggling. And then Victreebel's just not bulky at all. It just does damage. So yeah, we want a sponge, and Glalie is our sponge. Frostlass, not as much. So we add the Glalie, boom, and we're still reasonably spammy with the Ice Shard Avalanche. That's still pretty decent shield pressure, I will tell you. So we rate the team, and we got a couple of anti-dragon stuff going on. Feels good, man. All right, hey, we're down to 603. We're almost gonna break 600 on this. I would say if you can break 600, you're doing pretty good. Don't feel too bad if you can't, though. It's not that important. It really isn't. This is just a number. Use this number to reinforce how you feel about your team. If you feel like your team's good and this number says 700, your team's probably not good. If this number is really, really low, but you look at it and you're like, God, I don't know. I don't think this team's very good. It probably isn't. It's okay. It's okay to disagree with the number. But in this case, I think the number is dropping right in line with how our team is shaping up. Now, the whole thing I want to talk about with this team builder is don't put 6 guys in. Just don't do it. Put 3 or 4 core members that you're married to, right? We were married to Relicanth. We were potentially, I think we were married to Dragonair. I think those two just work really well together. And then from there, we were married to a grass type, but we're not particular. I think that Meganium wasn't required there and doesn't work super well with how Relicanth works. Relicanth's really like, it's a lot of consistent damage. It doesn't, with the water, it doesn't, like, it's not required to get Aqua Tails off to hit you with water damage. It's doing Water Gun. It's cool. So, yeah, I think this works really well. I think this team's really complementary. And so we're just going to fill that with a sixth pick. And so this is kind of the whole thing here. What I like about this team builder the most is two things. You can get married to certain picks. Then you can look and see, how do I fill these holes? And then you know what the other thing is, too? What if I didn't have a Glalie, but I did have a Frostlass? Well, I can just put Frostlass in there, right? I can just slam a Frostlass in and go about my day. I wouldn't say it's optimal, right? Or I wouldn't say it's like, of the little permutations you could do, maybe it's not quite the best one, but it's fine. It's serviceable. And it's what you have. And so I love this because it tells you that you can shore up certain weaknesses, and then you can look at this list on the left and you can say, I have those things, or I don't really have those things. I don't really have access to those. And then you can pick the one you already have built if you're trying to save some dust or, whatever. So, we're back, we're looking at this, and we're thinking, what's our sixth pick? A lot of people recommend an ice water type, which we don't have. So, and the ice water type that's the strongest against other ice waters is Celio. But we don't need to be strong because we have Relicanth. So, can we get away with a Lapras? That's the question. And could we possibly sub in a Lapras for a Glalie or things like that, right? Because if you scroll down, you can see Lapras is suggested, right? That's the one that jumps out to me here. Venusaur, Meganium, Ivysaur, none of those are eligible. We already spent our Charizard. Roserade is just some stupid Razor Leafer. We can ignore that. Politoed, I don't know. Just seems weird. Whiscash, Blastoise isn't eligible. Whiscash, so I'd say Politoed, Whiscash, Amistar, and then Lapras. I'd say those are our options. Those all seem like good options. I don't know too much about Amistar or Politoed. I don't know how they sim. I don't know how well they do. Politoed does a bunch of water damage and ground damage. Ground damage, Earthquake, I don't know. It's not really required in this cup, right? There's almost nothing that requires like a ground move. So it's just like neutral damage a lot of the time. Or resisted. So I'm going to skip Politoed. We're just going to skip on over that. Whiscash. Whiscash is really, really strong in this cup. Just really strong. Whiscash is very, very hard to kill. You need Razor Leafers to kill it super well, because it will just threaten your grass types with blizzards. So with good energy management, you can pull it off. So I think that's decent. And also, I think a Lapras is decent. I think it's really bulky. It sits around for a while. It does lots of stuff. It's hard for Lapras to kill, Celio and other Laprases and stuff like that. But that's why you got the Relicanth. That's what Relicanth does. So if you know who you really want on your team, figure out what it does well, figure out what its job is, and then build around that job. And so I think a Lapras could go really well in this team, or a Whiscash. Whiscash is a little awkward, though. This team isn't the spammiest, right? And Whiscash tends to prefer to be a little spammier. So we're going to go down and we're just going to look at what does Whiscash enable us to do, and what does Lapras enable us to do. So we're going to look at these rows right here. Along the top, Relicanth, Dragonair, Charizard, Victreebel, Glalie. Which ones are we worried about? We're worried about Zard. We're worried about Dragonair. And so, as you can see, oh, sorry, my bad. I was looking at our team. Okay, scratch that whole thing. This is the list we're looking at on the left. And so, when we scroll down here, and we scroll through, these guys across the top here are the threats to our team. So when we look at Lapras, we see Whiscash doesn't help us versus Lapras. We see basically we're looking at this Lapras matchup here, this row right here that I'm highlighting. And then we're looking at this row that I'm highlighting. We're looking at Whiscash and Lapras. We're just going to move left and right, and we're going to see what changes about that. So with Whiscash, we get Haunter. With Lapras, we lose Haunter. Okay, whatever. Haunter's not that popular, although he is badass. They both handle Dragonair pretty well. Okay, that's good. I think Dragonair is going to be really good versus this team. They both handle Dugong. They both handle Quagsire. They both do not handle Lapras. Lapras can handle Lapras in the mirror with some good play, and Whiscash kind of loses that. And then Pincers, whatever. I don't think he's very common. And so if I were to already gauge this team versus something like Razor Leaf, I'd say Glalie has a hard time versus Razor Leaf. It's just a little awkward. It can tank a Frenzy Plant, but it can't really take sustained Razor Leaf damage. But it can Ice Shard the hell out of a Victreebel if it gets ahead. So my thought here is you're probably okay being a little weaker to Razor Leaf. So I'm just going to put in both and see what we like. So let's just start with Lapras. Rate the team. Okay, this is where we do plug in all 6. We look at the threat score. We got 600. We're all good there. What are the potential threats here? So again, what we're doing is we're going to scroll left and right, and we're going to be looking for blue. Anytime we see blue, left to right, Pinsir, lots of blue, okay, that's a threat. Meganium, lots of blue, that's a threat, okay? So those kinds of things. So Kingdra. I'm worried about Kingdra. There is... Kingdra is bait dependent, though, so against some matchups, it does require a bait. But, yeah, in this case, Kingdra looks concerning. Haunter looks a little concerning. Meganium looks a little concerning. We have Lapras as well. Again, looks a little concerning. And all of these, right, these picks, something to keep in mind is how does your team stack up? Like, so let's say we were concerned about Lapras. It was strong against lots of our team. We were concerned about Haunter, Kingdra, Meganium, right? Let's just say that. Well, what we would want then is we would want to scroll down here and we want to see Lapras, Haunter, Meganium, Kingdra. Is anything good against all of them? And the answer is no, because they're really strong. But against, say, Meganium, Lapras, and Kingdra, we have an Ivysaur here. We have potentially a... No, maybe, yeah. So we can't win all of those battles. So that's kind of the thing is like, how do we could look at it like that and say, how do we shore up the majority of that, that hole? Like, can we fill that hole with one Pokemon? The answer is no. And so that's what we look like with Lapras. So let's just try it again, except what we're going to do, we're going to take Lapras out, and we're going to add in the Whiscash. We're going to see what happens with that. We're going to rate the team. We're going to go check out our threat score. It's a little higher, but still fine. We're going to look at the threats again. We're going to see that we have basically more issues versus grass. Venusaur, things like that. And we have like a Skuntank coming up. That's actually pretty interesting. Apparently it beats Kingdra. Apparently it beats Venusaur and it beats Meganium. That actually seems really nice. Because we, notoriously had some issues with those. So it loses to Lapras, but, we have the Relicanth to help out with that. So Skuntank actually looks really nice. And if you'll remember, we were trying to defend against those picks. Let's go back here. Skuntank. We were trying to defend against Meganium, Venusaur, and Kingdra as being very common. And so we ended up picking a Glalie because of it. We picked a Glalie to try and, kill some of this shit. granted, we could potentially drop Glalie for it at this point. Glalie, Skuntank walls grass a little bit more, and then we could keep the Whiscash if we like it. Or we could keep the Lapras if we like it. So let's just drop this Skuntank in real quick. Let's use the recommended moveset because that's the one that this sim is running off of. And then what we're going to keep in mind here is our Whiscash is potentially a Lapras or a Whiscash. We're going to scroll down, check our threat score, dropped by a little bit. We're going to go scroll through here and check this out. So, we are still weak to Meganium. Or no, sorry. Where is it? Yes, here. We are still weak to Meganium. Potential threats, Meganium beats 4. So, the issue, though, is that, it loses to the Skuntank. So, we're looking at Whiscash, right? We're looking at this little Whiscash column, and we're like, wow, Whiscash is helping us versus Dragonair. Which is pretty nice. It's pretty handy, not gonna lie. Dragonair, though, is now beating our Skuntank as well. So, it's a little concerning. The Dragonair is really strong versus us. Not a whole lot we can do about it unless we do like Whiscash and Glalie, which is what we had before. So we can kind of look at it like, who do we want to be weak against? Do we want to be weak against Dragonair? Do we want to be like, what is Whiscash really doing for us here? It's beating Dragonair, it's beating Haunter and Flygon, and it's not doing a whole lot else. And it looks like it's losing to Kingler now. So, my recommendation there is to pull the Whiscash and swap it in for Lapras. Or Glalie, maybe. Since those are those are the ones that seem to be jumping out at us a lot. Let's see what Lapras does. Threat score, it doesn't really change very much. We are still struggling versus, we do beat the Dragonair. What I would say is what we probably want to do. So the issue with this team that I see right now is we're weak against. Congrats if you're here after 32 minutes. So the issue with this team is we are still weak against a dragon type. And we don't really have any walls to dragons, you know? Like, Dragonair is not going to be very sad if it gets matched up versus most of our team. And so sometimes what you can do is you can deliberately make holes on your team that you have a hard counter for. So in this case, what we would want is we would want to open up bigger holes to grass because we have Charizard who walls them. We'd want to open up bigger holes to Lapras and Celio because we have Relicanth who walls them. And so right now, I would say the Skuntank does not accomplish that. And so, because it stops grass, and instead we're going to go, let's try going back to Glalie. Or we could honestly go with a Frostlass as well. It's still a little awkward for Frostlass. No. Alright. Glalie, there we go. We're just going to rate that. We're going to go right back down to the good old 600 that we were looking at before. And we're just going to check this out again. And we're going to go with... So, we're weak to 4 with Lapras. That's fine, right? Because Relicanth crushes it. We're weak to Pinsir and we don't care. It's not very meta. We're weak to Meganium. Oh no, Charizard walls it, right? So we're looking at these big X's, right? We're looking at these big X's. I think this Relicanth versus Lapras should be a bigger X than it is, but I think it's kind of a slugfest. You have to shield the Surfs, and any Ancient Power you get is just gonna really mess Lapras up. So I'd say it's a little bit of a bigger win there than it should be, but especially against Celio, we really, really crushed Celio. And so, so we're looking for, basically, we're looking for a giant line of blue, and then if it has a big X, then we know that that's still a really big liability for an opponent to use that, right? It's like, oh man, Meganium's like good against, 4 of these things. And it's like, okay, well, do you want to get it run into a Charizard though? Is that a good idea for you? Like, you're going to instantly lose the game if you get Meganium versus Charizard. That's just it. Like, the game's over. Charizard's going to come out of there with like 100 energy and ruin your day. So that's the thing to look out for. Kingdra, we are looking at Kingdra as well. Victreebel crushes Kingdra pretty hard. And Glalie surprisingly beats Kingdra, which is good. You just avalanche spam is just very powerful. And Glalie is just a little too tanky. So what we do is we really like this Glalie. It's keeping the Dragonair off of us. It's keeping the Kingdra off of us, and it's opening the door a little bit for Lapras, which we don't care about, right? So I'd say overall, this is probably a pretty good team. So what you can do here, what I like to do is I like to save it. I like to call it what the cup is, so time. Then I like to talk about the core. So this is a Rally Zard core, and then I like to put the battle score. Actually, I like to put the battle score first. So time 600 Rally Zard core. There we go, and then we save it. And then now you can see time 600 right here, and then you can screenshot this. You can just bam, take a screenshot. And then now, when you go and pull up this photo in your phone, you're going to see time 600. So because you don't want to take 2 screenshots. You don't want to take a picture of this threat score and a picture of the team. So you just put the threat score here, right there. That's where it is. And then you can select this, open it up, and whoa, good God, you've got a lot of different timeless teams that I've made. Yep. And you can switch between any of them when you feel like you want to pull them up. So yeah, this is my sort of in-depth tutorial on how to use the team builder and make a team in, I don't know, about 30 or 40 minutes. And I think this is a really solid team. Like, you can go playtest this and you can kind of hem and haw about it a little bit if you want. But honestly, if you were to just lock this team in right now, you would do totally fine. You would need to practice with it. You would need to perfect your strategies with it. But what you don't have to worry about is, am I picking the right team? Is this the best thing? Can I make a better one? Is there any holes? No. The answer to all of that is, you're good. Don't worry about it. Just worry about playing, practicing, and getting familiar. That's it. So, yeah, that's it. That's my giant long-form tutorial, almost 40 minutes. Congrats if you sat all the way through the video. Hit me with a comment if you did. I want to know which people are capable of getting through a whole video like this, and was it helpful? Should it have been less time? I don't know. I just kind of recorded this as some thoughts off the top of my head. This is not sort of pre-planned, so I didn't expect it to be a small video, and I didn't know how hard this team was going to be to build. To be honest, Relicanth is hard to build around. It just is. It's strong in certain areas and very weak in others. And so you have to support it really well, but what you get is a big giant wall to Lapras and especially Celio. And that's really valuable. There's not a lot of Pokemon that do that. So very, very interesting and very hard to play against. And now you can use that to your advantage with your team. You know the strength of Relicanth and other people may not. And you know how to pilot it and other people don't. You know how to gain out little margins when other people don't. And you can get this all from practice. So yeah, just let me know if you hung out this long, and hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any feedback about this, or if you thought this was useful, or if you want me to make other teams, just give me a suggestion. Be like, hey, can you make a Dugong team? And my answer would be yes, and then I would just go tell you the Dugong team that I made, and I think it's really good, and I'm going to use it. So yeah, just smash the subscribe button if you like this kind of stuff, and request more. I am happy to do more videos like this, and I'll try and make them faster in the next time. All right, catch you around. Bye.